Oscar Q. Zilch. What is comm lag? From what little I know, it seems to me to be a clever piece of thought reform in which uncertainty and reflection are framed as aberrations, quote unquote, to be trained out of the Scientologist. Oscar, is a great question. Thank you for asking me this, because I've never been asked about comm lag before, and it's kind of an important principle in communication in Scientology and in assessing or judging where somebody's at in terms of their sanity. Hubbard says that this thing called comm lag or communication lag is a test or indicator of how sane or rational somebody is. And what it is he says it's the exact amount of time between an auditor or a person in life asking somebody a question and how long it takes that person to actually answer that question. So, I ask you, how are you doing? And you go on a long tear about how about a problem at work or a problem at home or your car broke down or and you're just going blah 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 for 5 or 10 minutes because you think this person asked you, well, how are you doing? Well, here's how I'm doing. Blah, 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 blah. And finally, after, listing out or laying out all your issues or problems or drama, you then say, but other than that, I'm fine. Right? And a Scientologist might look at that and go, okay, it took you 5 minutes from the time I asked you the question to finally tell me you're fine. That's comm lag. That's a 5-minute comm lag. And I will judge you and your rationality accordingly, because L. Ron Hubbard tells me that the longer the comm lag, the less sane the person is. The more aberrated the person is, in other words, right? We're not talking about a binary of sanity, insanity. It's a spectrum. But the idea is that if you cannot simply answer a question that's asked of you or reply to a communication that is given to you in a instant kind of rapid fire fashion, there's just basically something wrong with you. Your mind is going around in different places and bouncing off walls and bouncing down the stairs before it gets back up and decides to actually address the subject matter of what it was that was being, asked of or given over. So comm lag is something Hubbard came up with in the 1950s. It was used as a means of judging whether auditing was working or whether auditing was producing any change in a person. How long was their comm lag from one question to the next to the next? If it tightened up, if it got smaller and less in time as you were asked the same question over and over again, for example. Do birds fly? Yeah. Do birds fly? Sure. Okay. Do birds fly? 3 minutes later, yes, they fly. I hate this. Okay. Do birds fly? Right. This is an example of a command or a process that might be run in Scientology. They don't use do birds fly, but they might ask the same question over and over again, at looking for or listening for the actual answer to the question and how long did you take to give it. This isn't, in modern Scientology, this isn't utilized very often. The auditor's not sitting there with a stopwatch counting how long it takes you to answer questions these days. But back in the 1950s and 60s, this was kind of a more utilized tool. And it's still written about and talked about in Scientology. So as you asked in the question, Oscar, you said, it seems to me to be a clever piece of thought reform in which uncertainty and reflection are framed as aberrations. I could not agree with you more in that description of what comm lag is. It's one of Hubbard's numerous tools used to introvert and put somebody on unsure footing and make them feel wrong or bad for thinking about or considering questions or commands or whatever. So it was just this weird thing Hubbard entered in, and it is just another form of ways to mess with Scientologists is really what that comes under. So there you go.